Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for checking out Swarthist. Today we are doing the first episode of 528 Hertz. It's going to be a little series where we check out some lyricism, some songs. But right now we are focusing on the Guilty Gear Strive soundtrack. Guilty Gear is a pretty old fighting game series, with the first game releasing in 1998. The lead producer is Daisuke Ishiwatari. He is also the lead designer and the composer of a lot of the music. Guilty Gear has a special appreciation for music. You can see it in some of the characters' names like Axel and Slayer. And the art style is really interesting. Now, I unfortunately do not have the thumbs to play this fighting game. I am bad at it. But I have gained a great appreciation for this soundtrack. So I really want to go through, break down some of the lyrics, some of the themes, some of the different messages that we're getting out of these songs, and maybe even rank them. The first song we're going to be looking at is Smell of the Game. This is the theme song for the game. I thought about skipping it because it's not one of the character themes, and that's what I really want to focus on. But I think that this song very much sets the tone for everything else. So for this first episode, we're going to do two songs. The very first song is going to be Smell of the Game. Again, the composer is Daisuke Ishiwatari, with vocals by Naoki Hashimoto. Today we're going to be looking at a video by a YouTube creator named CloudDrop, so please support them. Let's get into it. And I love that little boing sound. I love how this song starts. The music is really kicking right from the beginning, really sets you up. Another thing I love about this music is just how strong the instruments are. And starting off strong, firstly, I am not educated when it comes to music terms or what different skills it requires to perform some of this. But I will be saying things that makes it sound like I do. I am so impressed by the vocal delivery of these lines. Like, I can't sing, so hearing someone that's able to do, and it's a very interesting style of delivery that we're going to see consistently throughout some of the other songs too. But I love this delivery. But going back to the lyrics, it's very interesting to me that this very first line is "I know who I am," right? A very strong statement, a very strong way to start that. But then the very next line is, "The moonlit lake told me this is who you are." I think it's very interesting that obviously this moonlit lake is the personification of this reflection, right? You're looking at this lake, and what do you see coming back at you? But I do think it's very interesting that the very first line is such a uh, declarative proclamation of "I know who I am," but then the very next thing to just give evidence for that is saying that something else told this person who they are. And again, going back to this person declaring who they are, but then the way that this person is describing how they know who they are all these very superficial things: their nails, their fangs, their claws, their reflection. And the very interesting thing about Guilty Gear music is that I think it very perfectly encapsulates conflict on so many levels, and this song being not specific to any character, but to the theme of the whole game, I think captures the conflict of just one of the most basic things is our own perception, is who we are versus who we think we are versus who we want to be type stuff, right? Like something that everyone that has ever had to grow as a person or even perceives himself, or even if you try not to, I don't think there's any way to avoid having to question who you are at some point. And again, having such a strong, like, I know who I am, but like I said, all these ways that this person is describing who they are is very superficial. And exactly to, echo that sentiment is this echoey voice in the back of the head. And now the really interesting thing about this song and a lot of the songs is that they can read like a monologue, like this is a person talking to themselves. So maybe this is the voice in the back of their head that is questioning what those superficial uh, descriptors really mean and how valid they are. Asking, I wonder what that'll prove, right? I wonder what your reflection in those nails on those claws will prove at the end of the day. But also, it works as a dialogue between two people. Again, and I think that also mirrors conflict. How conflict can be external between you and an object or you and another person, but conflict can also be internal, where you're trying to figure out your own kind of feelings about a situation. That is bullshit lazy. Still my heart is blazing. If the word kill me, I don't need a new one. And right there, right? So all this stuff, and again, monologue, dialogue, maybe this is the inner voice, maybe this is someone giving I don't know if reassurance is a word, but someone recentering is saying, all those things you name, that's bullshit, right? Like that doesn't actually matter at the end of the day. And like, what do those things mean? And then going on to, if the words kill me, I don't need a new world order. Like really reflecting on what is the power of the words that are being used to describe this person, or that they're using to describe themselves. And what does it mean if the words don't match up to whatever this person thinks? And this person appears to be saying they don't need a new world order. They don't need anything to change. It is what it is. And that line, right? Title of the song, Smell of the Game. We already know it, right? That's bullshit. All that stuff you're telling me, I already see past it. I can smell past it. I have been in the game and I've smelled it and I know what it smells like already. Get sick, drums, guitars, all the instruments, I love them. Do you know who you are when you speak your words? Don't sound like your own. And bam, right there again. Do you know who you are? And why is this being asked? Because when you speak, the things that you're saying, that doesn't sound like you. That sounds like something else. And this is, again, is another one of those multifaceted kind of aspects of analyzing yourself. Because one, who is someone to tell you that your words don't sound like you that come out of your mouth, right? Like, what does that even mean? Does it mean the voice sounds different? Does it mean the context sounds different or the content sounds different? And it could be all those things, right? But understanding that level is hard. We don't always perceive the things that we say that don't come from us, right? The superstitions maybe we believe because they were passed down or something like that. And I think understanding that, or at least thinking about it, is a huge part of becoming your own person, is really starting to filter out what parts of you are authentic because they are something you're deciding, and what parts of you just come from perpetuating different things. You're trapped in the toxic created by this world. That is who you are. And that too, right? You're trapped in a dark cell created by this world. That is who you are, right? Now, again, if this is two different people, if someone's trying to cage you, right? They're trying to establish that identity by the things that maybe make you insecure or uncertain. You're trapped in that dark cage that the perception of you is built off of the cage that the world put you in. And there's strength. That is who you are. And right there, I love the contrast and comparisons between those first few things. Like we were really superficial at the beginning. Your teeth, your claws, going into your voice now. It doesn't sound like the things you're saying. The words a deeper choice than maybe what you look like. But then went another direction to bring up norms, standard rules, guidelines, all these things that must be kept up, and then going even more undeniable into gravity, right? Gravity keeps us on the ground. But interestingly enough, this narrator, this protagonist, this subject that we're looking at says even that is bullshit, right? None of this stuff. Like, if I lose my wings, I don't need a new world order. If the words kill me, I don't need a new world order. Like, if all these things that you're throwing at me is supposed to define me, or if you think that it's going to have some big consequence, I'm telling you it's not. That's bullshit, and I don't have to subscribe to it. And not only do I know the smell of the game, I know that you don't know the smell of the game. I know that while you're trying to make me question my identity, that you have no clue about your own. And I think that, again, this is the conflict between ideals that you see, right? When you think of two characters battling in a narrative, it is not just a physical battle, although it is one. It is also a battle of ideals that is being represented through this physical external conflict. But again, this external conflict does mirror the internal decision, because as you're battling for your ideals, if someone can make you question yourself, can make you waver and falter, then that's going to give them an edge, and vice versa. If you can if the strength of your convictions and ideals can make somebody else change, then that is also a strength in your own belief that is built off of your identity and all those stuff. But you could still have questions about that. And again, calling that back, if the words made you, if the words killed you, if I lose my wings, all these things that are saying, like, regardless of what happens, I still have a firm sense of self. Sick. Instrumentals. No notes. You got to the I really love how not just with the lyrics, but also the tempo, the tone of the music also feels very battle like, right? Like how fights have these ups and downs, and you're trying to stay in there, and maybe you have revelations during these fights. Like all the music, I think, again shows the conflict in the lyricism, but also shows the conflict in the way that the song itself is composed. And now we have to slow down. You know, the most universal question: what am I? Goodness.
Mankind knew that they cannot change society, so instead of reflecting on themselves, they blamed the beasts. But they found beauty in the lives of beasts and couldn't lie to themselves about it.
Before we get to this next part, let's break that down. So mankind knew that they could not change society. So instead of reflecting on themselves, they blamed the beast. but they found beauty in the lives of the beast, and they could not lie to themselves about it. And this, I think, takes those feelings of conflicts and then does bring them really externally, really socially into like a really big way, where you're saying mankind uh, knew that they couldn't change for whatever reason, right? And change is always necessary. So there's two interesting things about that line is that one, society will always change, right? Maybe not always for the better, but things don't just stay stagnant. They either get better or worse. We either double down on the good and leave behind the bad, or we double down on the bad and leave behind the good. So that is already a an impossible conclusion for an impossible problem, and we see again a conflict being created right here. So mankind knew that they couldn't change society. So instead of reflecting on themselves, so instead of even trying, they blame the beast. And I think we see this all the time, right? With bigotry, with others, with uh, xenophobia. Our society has a tendency to, instead of looking and asking ourselves these bigger questions or reflecting in a very big social way, maybe individuals do, but our society as a whole oftentimes is interested in perpetuating itself, not necessarily correcting itself for whatever that means. So again, mankind knew they couldn't change society, but instead of reflecting on themselves, they blame the beast. Now, what is the beast in this situation? Probably a lot of things, right? If we're going by the context in the song, the protagonist of this, the narrator of this, thinks that they're the beast. They said, I have my teeth, my claws, all these things. That is me. So feeling othered by society in this. But also, then it turns around, right? But they found beauty in the lives of the beast, and they could not lie to themselves about it. And I think this also goes into how, one, oftentimes when you see, aspects of society that are persecuted, you will also then see those things because any of the otherings of society will always exist in the whole, right? So all those aspects that they see in the beast will exist in mankind. And there is, maybe the reflection never happens to have people understand that they see that, that thing, that beast, that other could be you under different circumstances. Maybe you never get to that point of reflection, but even then, there is something inherent that we understand, even when you look at an animal and stare it in the eyes, that you understand that you two are both living things, that there is a familiarity with you, right? And that goes even double for a lot of human beings. If you have even basic empathy, right? You can understand that under different circumstances, you could be exactly the same. And that beauty then is also a reflection of the beauty that we have inside, or the beauty that exists in all of us, or the potential for that beauty, right? Do we always express it? Does it always show themselves? I don't know, but life in general is beautiful. The fact that we're a bunch of sentient elements that have formed these big systems of muscle and flesh and organ structures, but then have also then form these big systems of society, which we're also going to get into with these next set of lyrics. And there you go. I'm just a small part of the world, right? The acceptance of this. They didn't say insignificant, but they understand that this is one piece of a much larger thing, and the affirmation of that. But no one can break me. The words can't tell me if I lose my wings, all these things. No matter what happens, you can't change my identity. Another sit solo.
Can't you see I'm blazing? Still my heart is blazing. If the words kill me, I don't need it.
Even death, if the words kill me, I don't need it.
My tongue is my word. Your words will never let me disobey.
And that too, right? My tribe is my world. going further into a level of understanding about your identity where you realize it's not just the reflection you see in the lake, it's not just the aspects that you understand, it is also what other people in your life feel like you are, right? The status that you hold in other people's lives, the care and the love that we share as a unit is also part of who we are. And it's a part of who we are that can even further solidify our identity so that when we waver or feel away, we can find ourselves again in the love that we share, or maybe even the hatred that we share sometimes in others. Depending on how we validate our feelings in those ways can lead us to different paths. But those relationships, in a lot of ways, do determine who we end up being and what we end up focusing on. And art is always blazing. Beautiful song, good outro. I like the scratch at the end. Again, great theme to set up the series. Now, what we're gonna do is at the end of each episode, I'm going to spin this wheel. Is Drift here? It's not. All right, at the end of each episode, we're going to spin this wheel so we know what song we're doing next episode. Since this is the first episode, we're going to spin the wheel. Now, let's see what song we get. All right. Still the first episode of 528 Hertz. If you're liking what you're seeing so far, follow us on the socials. So, Swarthist on YouTube, Swarthy Artist on Facebook, and Swarthist on Instagram. And check out Nightbringer, our comic. Thanks for hanging in there. We are going to be breaking down the circle. This is Bedman's theme. Again, thank you, CloudDrop, for the video. This is the vocals are by Naoki Hashimoto, again with the composer being Daisuke Ishiwatari. And already we're seeing a very different like music style, similar with the rock, but also different. Okay, great. Just gives you chills, doesn't it? So, declaring that you see the circle whenever you're thinking about narratives and whatnot, when someone is declaring what they're doing, that is an important act of their character, right? So we know already from the jump that this circle, whatever it is probably a crucial part of the motivation of this character. And again, I cannot play Guilty Gear well enough to understand. I've never experienced the actual story of Guilty Gear. I've only experienced this world through the music. But it seems I would love to go through at some point and see how well I'm picking up on like character motives through this music. But even through the design, you see this character looks like has a cybernetic bed, is bedridden, isn't even fighting themselves. So this circle again is probably part of that motivation, but then the distortion of the circle already then makes this a more ominous quest than maybe just like finding health or something. If the circle can be turned into something like that audibly, then like maybe it's not to be trusted. and then a complete tone shift.
Welcome to the infinite world. What's my end game? There came a zero. Send here, there is a sentence everywhere. No.
Again, so weird, right? Like not even like almost musically, a little bit of tone. But once in the infinite, the zero, all these things circle. It's a theme. No peace.
Peace either. Where there is no beginning and no end. Will I be like that?
Oh, and right there, a question, right? When there's no end, no beginning. So right now, the vibes that I'm picking up, and again, with the character being apparently bedridden, uh, is mortality. So we're already seeing this conflict of um, continuity, right? The thing that, and again, I love how universal so many of these songs are in different ways. They all talk about conflict differently. So, talking about mortality, will I end? What does it mean for me to end? These questions that humans have been asking themselves for forever.
And yet the words that won't go with the room my head.
These words that can't go, these things that you leave behind. When I think of words overhead, I think of a gravestone, right? Like, what is that going to say? A gravestone is supposed to be permanent, but even those turn into rubble. But when you think about what are the things that people are going to say about me, think about me, remember about me when I die, and how does that affect my motivations when I'm alive? And bam, right there, asking God, right, a higher power. And we don't know what God means in this instance exactly, right? We don't know if this is like a Judeo-Christian God, if this person is religious, or if this person is talking about just the divinity of the universe, or something even more specific. But asking God, do you hear the chant? Do you feel the warmth? Uh, these very physical aspects, and trying to find that connection between us, the humans, and what we perceive as the divine. Again, things that we have been doing since humans have been thinking, and how much more that feeling would be contrasted if you were bedridden, if you were sick, if you were frail, like this character looks like they are, and the kind of reflections that you have when your life is like that, because he's saying all this stuff and then nothing here. So is this saying that this character doesn't feel like God is listening, that God is absent, or that those feelings that the character was just describing are absent inside them?
Pitch black, pure white, all the same.
And right there, this apathy, and maybe it's ignorance, right? Maybe, but when you say pitch black, pure white, those are very contradicting things, right? You would expect that difference to be obvious. So if someone is saying that that's all the same to them, they're either apathetic of the difference, or something is hindering their ability to perceive that difference. Which again, when we have these things that seem obvious and we're trying to perceive them, then that can also be frustration, and that frustration leads to conflict.
Endless, finite.
Again, opposites. And right there, right? So then we have another kind of tone shift musically, but we also have something else, right? So talking about 10 billion years in an instant, and this person will come to them in a second thought. So now we have some declarations by this character. Now it's not just a passive questioning existence, questioning mortality. Now this person is declaring something about themselves, that if in 10 billion years came to an instant, that they would still do this thing. When characters make decisions, that is when you see, same with people, when people make decisions, that's where you see our motivations shine through. I have no clue what's going on in the background. That's insane.
One after the other, over and over again, pushing you.
And that's another thing about circles, right? What circles also represent, and that's cycles, right? Repetition, things that we seem stuck on, whether that's internal growth, whether that feels like you're learning the same lessons and you don't know how to get out of it, or if you feel trapped in something that no matter how much you grow, that it doesn't seem to be making a difference. A new pendulum, right? Time turning, ticking.
Pendulum. My left that can reach like that through the wall. But I can't find you with access to the back of my eyelids.
Trying to figure out where you fit in these things that you should be able to feel in your body, but feeling like you can't. And maybe someone is telling you that it should be this way and it's not, or maybe it's the discomfort you feel in yourself. But this person is obviously extremely conflicted by the conditions that they're going through and their ability to actually perceive them, right?
It's black, you're white, all the same.
Endless, finite, very opposite things. And again, that declarative, I'm here. A little more sinister now. And now, in reframing this, restating it, a little more sorrow inside, a little more, really digging into the questions.
Nothing here but gold. You can't see the radiant light. You can't feel the beautiful change.
And in the same way that declaring what this character will do is important, the declaration of what they can't feel is also important. Because one, that can maybe jumpstart the growth, right? Being like, I can't feel these things and I want to, right? Or it can jumpstart your downfall. I can't feel these things and I will crumble for it. But also, we don't know. Maybe this is God's answer, right? Maybe God is saying, this higher power is telling this person, you can't feel that, you can't hear that. It is barring access to these experiences that should be universal to this character. And I wonder how they will respond.
If you can give someone something.
Interesting switch. You can't feel those things. No, you can't hear that. No, right? If you can give someone something. And I wonder what that is supposed to reference. What is that supposed to mean? If you give somebody memories, is it like a physical? If you can give a gift, a something of substance, then that will. Does that mean you lose access to those things, or does that mean in giving you can? Again, great instruments. And again, mirroring the tone of a fight, how they can drag on and how it can change and how your feelings during a fight, maybe you lose your conviction.
Copy that.
So we're going back to these themes and contradictions. This person's name is Bedman. They have a bed. They are fighting in a bed. That is not normally what beds are for. If the sanctuary that you're supposed to rest at, you can't even trust that, and then you're having a fight inside of it, then what does that mean? about your ability to rest, about your ability to grow, because human beings need rest to grow. And if you're never doing that, then you're burning out, you're spiraling.
I may not be able to make you smile, but I'll never make you cry, even once, never.
These very declarative statements, these very absolute statements, that's a big promise, right? And that's also a big thing to bar yourself from, saying, I might not be able to make you smile. Who are you to decide that? But it is interesting that this song went from like a very seemingly isolated analysis or isolated set of reflections, and now is going into something that is, seems inherently external, inherently intimate, though, right? This not even maybe insecurity, but maybe that is part of what we're seeing here, that I might not be able to make you smile, which feels harsh. You don't know that, like, give yourself a chance. But then kind of saying, but I'll never make you cry, not even once, right? Knowing that they're putting themselves at this very oof in the middle of these two extremes, and that extreme is also very hard to achieve. And I think that also kind of shows the duality of vanity, right? How uh, thinking very highly of yourself, thinking so highly that it's now unrealistic and it's not true to reality when you think you're better than everyone. That is one expression of vanity. But the other side of vanity can be thinking you're worse than everyone, thinking that even though people love you, that you don't believe them, right? That your feelings about yourself and your self worth override all the people that think you're worthy. And I think that kind of hits that too. But how we try to find ourselves at a realistic in the middle of those things, right? Most people aren't going to be down on themselves all the time. Most people aren't going to be riding a high horse all the time. Life happens very much in the middle.
I struggle to go outside the circle, consuming 10 billion.
And that admission of struggle, the circle being this endless thing. But earlier we talked about the borders of the circle. So even in this endless loop of things, this character is still perceiving an in and an out, this cycle here, but also this binary yes no, these extremes at the same time. Because if it's not all covered in the circle, then what does it actually mean if you're like walking this path doing this, but you never see the two things on either side of it? And I think that walking that and seeing those, but maybe not being able to gauge with them, is what is causing conflict in this character.
Have no time to you without a second thought. I'm here.
And like we heard in the last Smell the Game, finding strength in the tribe. If you can declare that you're here for someone, if you can use your relationship with someone else to kind of dictate who you think you are, then maybe that's how you find strength, right? That's not it for everybody, and maybe we all shouldn't be relying on validation in that way. But it is very valid that that is how some people find themselves. And another good song. At the end of each episode, I will be putting these in the order that I like them the most. All right, we got Smell the Game, The Circle. I do like these songs both very much, but I think Smell of the Game is going to have to come in number one, and Circle is at number two right now. Thank you so much for watching. Please follow us on our socials. Check out nbcomics.com for merch and our comic book. And let's find out what the song for next week will be. Oh, snaps, drift, happy chaos. See you next time.